right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the closing bell on Wall Street today, and I'm told that it's Australia, the country of Australia, not the continent of Australia. Joining us now, I don't believe the continent has a flag, although probably I will be educated and learn that the continent does have a flag. Anyway, Jeff Yastine, editor of Newsmax's Financial Intelligence Report newsletter, joins us. And Jeff, I know early in the day things were looking good on Wall Street. How did it all close?
Yeah, faded into the close today. The Dow finished down 80 points. We had the NASDAQ down 7 points, the S&P 500 losing 9 points. And like we've had to say in other days that you and I have talked, there was no one single indicator to say why the market moved down today, except earnings jitters. We're hitting the main stretch of earnings season in the next few weeks, and the tendency in this case is to sell first and ask questions later.
Well, we had some earnings, so far, kicking off, I guess, last week with Alcoa and a few companies, and have reported. What about the dollar? The dollar has been a factor of late. Rising, and then it cooled for a little while, and maybe that was in conjunction with the rise in the market last week. You tell me, and what happened to the dollar today?
Yeah, what's being watched very carefully here is the dollar. We look at it through this thing called the U.S. dollar index. You can punch it up on most Yahoo type stock charts and all that. But the dollar, it hit about 100 back in early to mid-March, and then it faded down into the mid-90s. And now it's beginning to move back up again. It hit 99 and some change today. And if it continues to move higher, that means the dollar is returning to yet more strength. And that likely means that oil prices will move lower. And it could also mean that a lot of these emerging markets, market indexes, which tend to move opposite to what the dollar is. If the dollar is moving higher, it means a lot of these emerging markets will likely move lower.
And if the dollar continues to climb, it means that our exporting companies don't get as much profit. It also means, what, an overvalued American stock market?
By some historical measures, traditional measures, absolutely. Now, again, all these things are relative, but the idea is, yes, if the dollar moves higher here and continues to move higher, it means that all these American multinationals are going to have more trouble selling their exported goods in overseas markets, and that's going to eventually come home to roost. Where it all happens and how it all plays out is the big question mark, but that's leading to yet more of the nervousness that we're talking about here with the stock market.
All right, now let's go to China. And you and I discussed the Chinese stock market last week. Now there's some concern. I am reading that there might be a bubble in the Chinese market, and that some of it has to do with fears that a portion of the investors in that market over in China are uneducated.
Well, there's a variety of factors going on here. In part, the central bank there has been talking about doing more or doing some quantitative easing, so that's making it more conducive for people to come into this market. There's been a crackdown on corruption and also gambling in Macau. And then on top of that, yes, there's this big influx of new investors, new Chinese investors, who are basically approaching stock investing the way a lot of people did back in the early and mid 1990s, in the lead up before the big tech bubble, where a lot of them have not been through the markets and the ups and downs before. And so somebody did a survey and found that something like 6% of Chinese investors can't read.
I wonder, Jeff, how that would translate if we did a survey here. Probably everybody could read, but I don't know how educated they would.
It depends on whether we're talking about can't read Chinese.
Right.
Very
good point.
But nonetheless, I think the main point is just a lot of them are inexperienced.
Thank you, sir. Speak to you tomorrow, as always. Hey, folks, you can find out more on your financial news by going to Newsmax.com and clicking the finance button at the very top of the page. Up next, Give Me 5.